In ninth grade, I attended my sister's mother-in-law's funeral. While in another room, there was commotion as people by the body started screaming that her tongue had come out of her mouth again. Curiosity got the better of me, and I ventured into the room, standing on my tiptoes to see over the crowd at the casket. I observed some older guys attempting to push her tongue back in. At the time, I wasn't particularly scared, but rather amazed by the situation. Just as I was processing everything, my sister came to fetch me, informing me that we needed to go to her house so she could shower and return. She questioned why I had been watching and if I was scared. I wasn't scared at that moment. We arrived at her house, and upon entering, something about the basement door gave me an eerie feeling, so I closed it. My sister asked me to wash the dishes while she went to shower. As I washed the dishes, I faintly heard the sound of funeral drums emanating from the basement. Initially, I believed it was just my mind playing tricks on me, so I continued with the task. However, the drums grew louder. Confused as to why I could hear them from the basement, I approached the door and pressed my ear against it. The drumming ceased. Returning to the dishes, the drums resumed, this time louder. I crept back to the basement door, and the sound stopped once again. Annoyed and a little scared, I still had a sink full of dishes to wash. I pondered whether my sister and brother-in-law had somehow connected a speaker to the funeral home, allowing them to always hear the funeral. This seemed strange to me. I decided that the next time I heard the drums, I would open the basement door and investigate. I knew that only my sister and I were home. As I continued washing the dishes, the drums started again, replicating the volume from the funeral home. I sprinted to the basement door, flung it open, and was met with pitch darkness. Tentatively, I descended a few steps and realized the foolishness of my actions. No one was home, and there was no drumming. Frightened, I sprinted back upstairs and headed straight to the bathroom, pounding on the door to ask if my sister was finished. Unfortunately, she had just started her shower. Frustrated, I glanced at the sink, still filled with numerous unwashed dishes. Determined to avoid my sister's wrath, I mustered up courage and rinsed the dishes, placing them in the dish rack without knowing if they were truly clean. I hurried back to the bathroom, pretending I needed to use it, prompting my sister to open the door for me. After this incident, my sister's mother-in-law haunted my dreams for what felt like several years. I would wake up in the middle of the night, her face looming in front of mine, grinning with her long tongue hanging out. Every corner of the room I looked, she would be standing there, her long black hair and sinister grin haunting me. Foolishly, I never confided in my grandmother or my parents. Eventually, the visions abruptly ceased. Thankfully, as other events unfolded following my cousin's passing, I was forced to confront new challenges. One evening, as I went to take out the trash, a peculiar incident unfolded that has stayed with me ever since. Our house had a small bathroom near the door, leading out to the patio in the backyard. On this particular night, as I approached the bathroom, I noticed that the light was on, casting a soft glow around the doorway. To my surprise, there was a man standing at the sink, his figure partially obscured by the bathroom door. The first thought that crossed my mind was that it looked remarkably like my brother. He was wearing a white shirt, a detail that seemed to align perfectly with what my brother had been wearing earlier. Assuming it was him, I casually called out, "Hey," brother's name, expecting a response or at least a glance in my direction. However, there was no acknowledgement from the man at the sink. Puzzled, but not yet alarmed, I took a step closer, intending to engage in further conversation. But just as quickly as I had approached, I turned and walked back into the house. Confusion clouded my thoughts. Where had my brother disappeared to in such a short span of time? I made my way to his room to find him, only to discover him sitting at his desk, wearing a black shirt, definitely not the white one I had just seen moments ago. Perplexed, I asked, "Weren't you just in the bathroom?" His response was immediate and unequivocal. "What do you mean?" "I've been in my room the whole time," he replied, a hint of confusion in his voice mirroring my own. I couldn't shake off the eerie feeling that lingered after the encounter. The image of the man in the white shirt standing in the bathroom remained vivid in my mind, and I was certain that I hadn't imagined it. The incident left me questioning what I had seen and pondering the mysteries of that strange night. When I was only a few years old, my parents never got along. I was their third child and the youngest at the time. When my parents first got married, they loved each other a lot. They were the loveliest married couple you've ever seen. A few years after they had me, my dad started going out with his friends late, drinking with them. It was only my mom who took care of me at home while my siblings went to school. Whenever he returned home, my mom would argue and fight with him. At first, it didn't seem too bad, but as time went by, my dad got more violent. He started hitting her and pushing her around. Sometimes, he would even threaten to kill her. Every day I had to suffer. Seeing my mom cry her eyes out, her life was so miserable and sad. One rainy night, she made me a plate of rice and boiled pork, as she told me. "I'm going to go into the basement to do some laundry. Don't follow me." I still remember how dead and lifeless she looked that time before leaving me behind. It felt like hours went by, and she never came back. I made my way into the dark basement to see if she was done. I walked to the laundry room and saw my mom hanging there with some rope attached to her neck. I walked over to her and tapped on her leg. "Mommy, what are you doing?" "I'm done with my food," I said to her. But she wasn't moving. Her body was slowly swinging around. Her eyes were open, and her mouth was slightly open. She also had a bad smell coming from her. I had no idea what she was doing, so I just stayed with her for what felt like an hour before I took another look at her and realized her eyes were slowly turning towards me as her mouth formed a grin. She looked so weird and different. Suddenly, I heard the doorbell ring as I ran upstairs to open the door for my siblings. I told them that Mom is being weird in the basement as my older brother made his way into the basement. I was still talking to my sister when we heard a terrified scream from downstairs. It was my brother's scream. We both rushed down as he yelled to call the cops and burst out crying. My sister immediately grabbed her phone and dialed 911. My brother and sister were crying in front of my mom. I was confused about why they were reacting that way. I still remember what my brother was saying. "Mom, why would you do this? Do you not love us?" About 30 minutes later, sirens were heard as there were about 2 to 3 policemen entering our house. They covered my eyes and took me upstairs. Sometime later, they took down my mom's body and took me and my siblings away. After everything was over, they took me to an adoption center, and I was adopted by some foster parents. I was separated from my siblings. As for my dad, I don't really know what happened to him, but I heard he went to prison. My foster parents took good care of me, but I really miss my mom. One day, I remember I was playing with toys with their son, and I accidentally broke one of the toys. He cried as the foster parents came to comfort him. They didn't blame me, but I felt a little sad for the boy. At first, my foster parents loved me and took good care of me, but they started being mean to me, not liking me since I wasn't truly their son. There was a time I accidentally broke one of their favorite plates while eating, and the father started yelling at me, which made me cry a lot. I ran into the storage room and cried to myself in the dark as I thought about my mom. I couldn't fall asleep. I kept crying while it was already late. I felt a hand on my shoulder as I turned to look, and it was my mom. I hugged her tightly. She wasn't the same anymore, but I didn't care. No matter how scary or weird she looked, she is still my mother, and the only thing I could think about at the time was her. I was too young to even realize what she was. Some nights, I would see her appearing in front of my eyes while everyone was already sleeping. She holds onto my hands and brings me food. She never really said anything to me, though. She was very quiet, and I couldn't even see her face since her hair was a mess. I told my foster parents that my mom would be taking care of me when they're all asleep, but they thought I was just a child, so it's normal for me to behave this way. They started to not really love me as much, but still keep me around since they know I will be able to help them once I grow up more. For some reason, their kids had stopped playing with me. He seemed scared and creeped out every time he saw me. It's almost like there was something scary around me that he sees. As I started to grow older and older, my foster parents grew more distant from me. Even their kids didn't really like me as much. We go to the same school, but they don't even want to claim that we were living together. My foster parents were being mean to me, which made me cry a lot, to the point where they just had me eat somewhere else every time it was lunch. One night I heard my foster mom screaming from her room like she was terrified of something. I tried to listen, but all I could hear was talking about something. They seemed scared. I really don't know why, but this family seems to be afraid of me lately, almost like I'm a ghost. My mom had also stopped visiting me ever since I turned 9 years old. I really miss her, and whenever I mention her to my foster parents, they just look at each other. I also don't know what happened, but they started being nice to me again, out of the ordinary. As I reached my teen era, life got a lot worse for me. I had no parents to show me affection, no one to teach me things. I wasn't happy the way I was one day. I even thought about ending my life. I walked to a nearby bridge as I looked down into the creek below before looking up into the sky. Tears filled my eyes as I thought about all of the things that happened in my life. I miss you so much, Mom. Where are you? Why did you have to leave this world without me? Do you know how lonely I am without you? No one loves me. I don't want to live anymore. I thought to myself before attempting to jump down, but just then, I felt a hand grab mine as I glanced at the person, and it was her. My mom was standing next to me as she smiled at me. She looked like an angel. She then pulled me back into a hug. I cried to her. It wasn't long before someone saw me and came to rescue me from attempting suicide. Many years later, I graduated from high school and moved out to live with the friends that I made from high school. We also went to college together and earned our degrees. I was able to find a good job for myself, and my life was moving forward. I also went back to visit my foster parents as they were getting old now, maybe in their 70s, 80s now. They were much different from before. They were nice to me and even apologized for being how they were before. They also revealed to me that when I still lived with them as a kid, I was too young at the time, so I didn't know, but since they kept being mean to me, my mom would show up and haunt them. She would constantly show up in their dreams and told them that if they don't love me, she will give them a reality check. Something like that. Some nights, they wake up and see me standing at their doorway, looking at them possessed, or some nights, they'll hear me walking around laughing and giggling. They wanted to put me up for adoption again, but they were too scared of my mom. They even tried to fetch a shaman, but it didn't work. One night, my foster mom woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom, and as she sat down on the toilet, she felt someone grabbing her feet as she looked and saw a Hmong lady with long hair covering her face, also in Hmong clothes, crouching down beside her. She screamed and ran out of the bathroom. She told me all of the scary things that happened to her and her husband as we all laughed and joked about it. I was shocked to hear all of this, but I was also very happy that my mom defended me so much and I never knew. Ever since I left them, my mom never appeared again. She had also stopped showing up for me. I guess since now I'm living a better life, her job is done. I'm happy for everything that she's done for me. The reason why I'm alive today is because of her. As for my siblings, I got in contact with them again since I did a lot of research on social media and found them. They're also living a happy life as well. Already married. They're already ahead of me. It's time for me to step up to the next chapter of my life and see where it'll take me. If you are finding this video enjoyable, I kindly request that you consider subscribing to my channel in order to receive more captivating content similar to this. By subscribing, you not only show your support for the channel, but also provide me with the opportunity to produce a greater number of videos exclusively for your viewing pleasure. It's as easy as clicking the subscribe button below and activating the notification bell, which will ensure that you are promptly notified whenever a new video is uploaded. Your subscription means a great deal to me, and will undoubtedly motivate me to continue creating valuable and entertaining content. Thank you sincerely for your support.